Hi all. Right, so we're just going to run through the steps taken to put a base in for a barn floor. I think there's 4 inches of chalk going over the top of what we've put in today. So first of all, we had to get the machine into the job. As you can see, the customer already had this delivered months ago, so we had to take the machine up and over. Doing that, we basically put a ramp in, so that the machine's capable of going up. Put the arm out the front, sort of counterbalance it. And then yeah, it's just basically a case of getting up, making a nice flat level surface for the machine to go over the top of. Relatively straightforward. Yeah, and just basically push nice flat level and get the machine over there. Next up, we have a lot of clay, very wet clay. We couldn't put the machine on it; it was that wet. This section here is fine, but down the bottom there, it's absolutely horrendous. The machinery just sunk, so we're scraping off the worst we can, trying to get as much water off as possible, and stop piling it down the bottom here. We actually did this in 2 sections. We did the first section, stoned it up first day, tram and everything like that, and then the second day we came back in, hoping it was going to be drier, so sort of pushed that out. Just pushed out the machine, but we'll see that in a minute. You see there, I just put the bucket in the floor just to see how soft it is, and the bucket basically sunk, and that's the widest bucket we've got in the machine. So yeah, as soon as you put the machine in, it sunk 6 inches before we even started, and if we carried on, it would have just kept going. So just trying to get this soil or clay as best as we can out of the way, so we can start putting some tram down and start putting some stone down into the area and giving us a nice solid base to work with. Yeah, so it's just a case of pushing this now. As we was pushing it out, it was basically pushing the water off the top as well. We did make a couple little marks in there, basically pulled it about so the water sort of drained off naturally down the hill, but yeah, and just basically pushing it at the back of the bucket. It was that sticky, the bucket was, sticking to it. You could hear it, the suction coming off it. So if we got the machine in there up to the frame, there's no way we would have got it out. So that's about as far as we went with it for the first day. Just basically got it out of the way enough so we could get on and start moving some stone around. So because the ground was so wet, we didn't have a dumper or anything like that. It would have just sunk, so we had to basically walk it in. This is what we call walking in. You basically pick it up from one end, chuck it as far as you can, make it like obviously a bank or something like that, which you basically track across the top. You just keep going until you get the material into the right location where you need it to. That's 40 ton of material that we're sat on there. So yeah, it's a fair amount, and we moved that God knows how many times. So we got that basically in within a day, just literally moving it like this. As you see, we've got it trammed down. We've got half it trammed off, and the top of concrete there to the bottom of dig is round about 12 inches. Well, I think it's more than 12 inches because they wanted 6 inches of this stone, which is like a type 1 stone, and then 6 inches of clean 20mm stone, and then they wanted 4 inches of chalk to go on top, which should come top of that concrete. But they didn't have that, so we haven't done that at the moment. Right, so now we've moved on day 2. We're basically making like a little path so we can take the machine out, basically spread the load of the machine onto the stone over the top of the tram, so we can get to this far right side to push that clay out as far as we possibly can. You can see it's very, very windy. It was just, the weather is horrendous. So yeah, we just a case of just moving material now and just putting it roughly in place and giving us, so we've got a solid base for the machine to track across. That's the plan anyway. Yeah, so there you go. So just basically pulling it out, just trying to get a nice sensible sort of surface, and obviously we're still just putting the material in the place where it needs to be. we had to get this done as well because we had a weather warning. Right, so trying to get the machine out there as best we can, and as soon as I put that blade down, it just sinks. So the bucket even started to go under, so we sort of pushed back. That's kind of resting on a bit of the stone. That's basically as far as we could go. Just basically pushing that clay out, almost sealing it as well as it's pushing it out. So hopefully, you know, water won't come up through or anything like that. There you go. Got the machine out. Didn't get it stuck, which is the whole point of this exercise. Right, so next up is basically this is a relatively tight one. It's quite a large sort of material type one. This is basically just going through now. We got the line there, you can see we're roughly 6 inches below that line, and it's just a case of going through and spreading it right the way across. We've got a nice sort of decent surface now to work on. Yeah, and it's just a case of just grading it through by the eye. We didn't use no laser or anything like that. It's not a big enough area really that we'd sort of be that far out with it. So yeah, they got concrete beams going on the right hand side of this, and the left hand side eventually be dug out on the same floor and be put down. So we did also track this in, this bottom layer, track it with the machine, basically run the machine up and down it, and it sort of compacts it in a little bit better. And next up was the stone, 20mm clean stone. This is just loosely grading it in. We did a much better sort of job at this going through. But yeah, it's just exactly the same process, just going through, moving material, walking it in, and then scraping it back and getting roughly sort of our heights where we need to be. Yeah, you can see there I've tracked it in. Yeah, and then some photos basically of it sort of finished up to as far as we got with it. That's not being compacted or anything like that. The owner needs to run a roller or a whacker plate over there. But you can see where the machine's sat on it, it's not sunk down or anything like that. It's a nice firm solid base for them to work on. I think he needs to get a little bit more stone come the end of it, but yeah, he basically wanted us to get that down flat and level like that. So customer's happy, he was over the moon. That took us basically 2 days to get to that stage. Most of that time was spent moving the material, which we couldn't help because of conditions, and the customer needed it doing sooner rather than later. So thanks for watching. 90% of our viewers are not subscribed, so please subscribe. We try and get most of our videos out on a regular basis. Thanks for watching.